My name is Dr. Rick Seguil.
And action. Hey, Jay had a... This is Kristi, man. And action. Hey, everyone, it's Dr. Rick. Kristi had a question about how to lower her cholesterol. And I think one of the easiest ways to lower your cholesterol, without even thinking about it, is just try to lower weight. If you can lower your weight, your BMI, or your waistline, usually the efforts that you do to get to that point will have knocked cholesterol out. And I also have this suggestion about animal products, and I am a vegan at this point in time. I was a pescatarian for many, many years, with the occasional indulgence here and there at parties, but for the most part, that was fine. And when a patient of mine in his 40s had a heart attack in my second room, it was evolving. And the EKG here was totally normal. He looked okay, but he was having this weird pain. Well, he wound up having a heart attack. And he's recovering, so thank God everything is okay, but still have a long way to go. But I decided to go vegan to maybe inspire him and see what my patients have to go through. So I'm not asking anyone to be vegan. However, one of the easiest ways is a meatless Monday and a Tofu Tuesday. Tofu Tuesday! So usually it's meatless Monday, fish Friday, but I'm going to get more aggressive and no meat on Monday, no animal products on Monday, no animal products on Tuesday, and that's 2 days out of the week, 2 days out of 7. Maybe today you're watching this, it's Tuesday, who knows, Tofu Tuesday today. I thought I'd give it a chance. I mean, it's 1 in 7 chance that you might watch this on a Tuesday. But don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and the alert button to find out when I do new videos. The minute clinic videos are usually when patients have, or there's a dominant question throughout my day, and I'll want to, if it's reverberating with my patients, I'm sure the general public has the same question. So the majority of patients between 40 and 50 that I see, average Joes, average Janes, elevated cholesterol. So how do we lower that? Well, again, you move your life and you make lifestyle changes to try to lose weight, lose BMI, lose inches. If you're having difficulty with doing that, there's a lot of reasons for the weight thing. But if you just wanted a little bit of a hint of what to do, yeah, I'd get 2 days out of the week where you don't do anything as far as an animal product. That means no meat, no beef, no pork, no chicken, no turkey, no egg, no dairy products. So if you can do that, no fish. If you can do that for a whole day, which is not that bad if you think about it, 2 times a week, one whole day, 2 times a week, that's cool. As far as which days of the week, it doesn't matter. Just if you look at what happens in 365 days a year, if 2 days a week you eliminate a meat or a meat byproduct, then I think you're batting 100. At least we'll see what happens. That's a start anyway. So it's just so hard to maintain regimented, strict dieting. This veganism is a bit tough. And I keep on wanting to just have my can of sardines, or occasionally when I go to a party, I think, oh, I want that lechon again. Lechon is a Filipino dish, and reminds me of when I used to grow up in the Filipino parties. So I miss that a bit. Also miss, Mom used to make me scrambled eggs, rice, and I think Spam in the morning. And I miss having those things, but I substitute because I'm getting older and I have disease. So it hopefully doesn't manifest itself ever, but just like my friend Robert, who had his problem, we didn't think it was going to manifest, and bingo, it did. So unfortunately, most Americans will have, by the time they're 50, the beginnings of heart disease, pre-cancer of some sort, and neurodegenerative disease or stroke. So heart, cancer, and brain. Those are the things that are coming out. And as I've always said in my videos before, other parts of the world where they live to 100, they have the same diseases, but not till like 100. We have the diseases in our 60s and 70s, which is not fair. Just had to put an uncle of mine who passed away in the ground, and it's painful. So if we can prevent that, it's great. But preventing usually means you have to make changes when you don't feel anything, and that's the drive. If your morale is not there, you won't be able to sustain it. I know there's a lot of people who like keto, And anytime I mention veganism or vegetarianism, there seems to be some kind of fight between the keto guys and the vegetarian or plant-based guys. And you know what? I have no kickbacks from any groups. I don't sell anything. You guys should be careful about those things and products that you are subscribing to, because the person that's giving you the information, which could be skewed or biased, is probably selling you a product or a service. So just be careful. You should be able to do this on your own without spending or subscribing to anything. And I'm going to give you an option, or at least one option of what I did to get into this veganism. I do this 7 days a week. And I thought it was hard at first. Now it's easy, and I just had a workout today as usual. No side effects. So I'm going to see what happens at the 3-month and the 6-month mark as far as my blood markers, and I'll post them. But I have about 2 more months to go. So does it help? Yes, it does help. The work of Dean Ornish is the only reliable study that says switching to a plant-based diet reverses heart disease. It doesn't just stop it like a statin. It doesn't just hold it. It reverses it. And if you have a cancer, you would like to reverse it. You don't want to just stop it and hold it in its tracks and keep that cancer. You want that thing out of you. At least my patients who have cancer. You want it out of you, and you want to have life back the way it was before. My guys who have suffered heart attacks or have had stents or bypass, they're not usually the same after the procedure. And sometimes the threat of going through and getting another stent or having your zipper put into your chest again and a couple of jumps, that threat will keep you honest. And maybe that'll be the inspiration to make a major lifestyle change. As far as whether you go vegetarianism or not, I'm not sure. It depends on several different factors, as I mentioned in the beginning. But the work of Dean Ornish is the only study that has said how to reverse heart disease. Now, the keto camp, I like what they're doing. Inflammatory markers definitely change. The work of Stephen Finney has showed that. But the long term, I'm waiting for the big studies to come out. And there might not be big studies that come out. We might just have to use those N of 1 anecdotal person-to-person stories that we get. But when you have evidence that says you can reverse heart disease and gain your life back without any progression onto a heart attack, why not try it? I know it's threatening because you're not going to have your hamburger anymore, but I still make great hamburgers, all from pea protein, and I put cheese substitutes, and I put mayonnaise substitutes, and I put my lettuce and my onions, so it still tastes good. So it's just a matter of changing. And if this is one of the things you can do to initiate it with the Tofu Tuesday, then great. So these are some substitutes. Those of you who exercise, you're worried you're not going to have the protein. Don't worry about the protein. In fact, there's a lot of protein in plant. You just have to become used to and well versed with how to get protein. So switching from animal-based protein to plant-based protein, I'm fine. I try to get 20 grams of protein at the least. 20 to 30 is nice, but it's hard to find, it's hard to organize 20 3 times a day. 30 grams of protein 3 times a day, so I just do 20. 20, and I hit it again and again. So I think that should be fine. If you're really competing, you might want to go a little more aggressive, but you're going to have to stuff yourself. And you're going to have to really measure. Then, when it comes to measuring food and counting macros, it might get to be a little bit of a challenge. And to maintain that in the long run is tough. If you're a faster, I'm going to have another video on fasting, the fasting mimicking diet soon, and how it works. But we're just talking about this concept here. So just if you're not well versed with a couple of the authors, here's a great author with Garth Davis. This page talks about, and he quotes some of the studies on switching over to veganism, or at least a plant-based diet. The number on the side shows you that of the studies, when they went to plant-based, compared to the general population, there is almost a half. They cut in half their risk for death. So that's what that 52 and the other numbers refer to. Those are reasonable studies if you look them up. Again, a good book for those of you trying to switch over. There are some people who talk about ignoring the LDL and total cholesterol and LP little a and homocysteine or HSCRPs. I think Sinatra makes a good go at saying it might not be that important, But the only thing I use, the biggest thing I use cholesterols, LDLs, HDLs, triglycerides, homocysteine, and CRPs for, even the fractionated ones, is as a marker. If we're going to make a change and you're drastically high, if you have symptoms and you're about to have a heart attack, I've got to lower you. I got to send you to cardiologist, got to lower all risks as soon as possible. And then we work slowly. Now, if we're just in our 40s and 50s and there's nothing close yet as far as a possible heart attack and no symptoms, and we're not really that overweight or that under exercised, I can do natural. I just did a video on red yeast rice. I've had videos on fish oil or total omega-3, so check them out. I'll put links down below. But I think there's ways to just maybe cut those 2 days out per week. And this is the study. This is the guy who put the study together to determine that heart disease was reversible. Before Dean Ornish came up with this information, I remember in clinic when somebody came in with a cholesterol that was found to be high upon a regular wellness checkup, we said at that point in time, you could never, once the coronary arteries are blocked up, you will never be able to unblock them. It's just a matter of, this cardiac specialist used to use a rotor-rooter to drill through and cut the cholesterol plaque out. Now, that seemed to work temporarily, but PTCAs, nobody does that anymore, I don't believe. They do balloon angioplasty, they do stents, that still works, but it wasn't until Ornish found that they could reverse it that doctors like me started to say, okay, maybe we should throw more into this nutrition. But unfortunately, because we don't really study nutrition in medical school, we threw more into statin use. In fact, there are some cardiology groups that want to put statins, that's medicines to lower cholesterol, even in the water supply, which I don't agree upon because kids will drink that stuff. So I think the better evidence is the stuff that shows your inflammatory markers decrease when you just switch your nutrition, when you just start exercising a little more, when you get better sleep, and when you start to love and be happy again. Those things work, why not try them? So, how do we switch to a Tofu Tuesday? First off, you have to make sure, so nowadays it's pretty easy. Because if you go, yes, you will have to spend more money because the cheap food is so cheap, but the money you save in buying cheap food now, you better save it because in about 10 to 20 years, you'll be using it for co-pays and medications and prescriptions and visits to specialists. So all that money you're going to have to spend sooner or later. So spend it now that you don't even have to see those guys and you'll be happier and you'll probably beat cancer because the same activities you do to lower cholesterol, Tofu Tuesday, are the same things you do to beat cholesterol. So, beat cancer and stroke. So this is pretty cool. It's not your standard tofu. You can probably find tofu anywhere. Before it was just in Oriental or Asian grocery stores. Now you can find it anywhere. I got this at Target. So Target stores has this. You always have to make sure it has an organic stamp or a non-GMO project because yes, and some of you probably turned this off already, but those folks that turned it off because they don't like soy products, understandable because soy is a plant commodity covered or protected by the U.S. government, and there are GMO products out there, and a lot of the soy that you'll see without the organic stamp is probably genetically modified. So, and it is controversial that if you eat something that's genetically modified, not this is organic, it cannot be genetically modified, but if you eat something genetically modified, in the DNA of that soy plant that is now in semi-processed, you will have this foreign DNA that's genetically modified, and we don't know the downstream effect of a multitude of different foods in your body with GMO. So if you can, until we get that information, try to avoid it. And that means organic, and this is tofu, so I sometimes parcel this up, I break it up and put it in my salad. You can put it in olive oil and drizzle it with different spices, make it taste good. Finger food, you can prepare it different ways. This is one product of tofu. Again, Target. I got this at Whole Foods. Here's the other, and this is actually a hero, Veggie Heroes. So doubters will say, well, you're just wanting to get why? If you're going to have something that is a hero, just get a hero, like the old school guys that cook. That makes sense, but if those processed meats that you're eating before gave you the cholesterol, why would you want to continue on that road? Which is usually my argument against keto, because if you look at the average keto diet, it's exactly what my patients were doing before. Eggs, bacon, steak. They might be a little more conscious about throwing vegetables in, which is good, but if you're doing it before and we're trying to get rid of the cholesterol, or lower it at least as one of your markers, and lower your weight, why would you continue doing the same thing? Now I just bastardized keto dieting. I think there's more to it, and I did keto for a short time. There's more to it, and it does put you into ketosis, which is not a great feeling, but if you can maintain or adapt to that ketosis, you will lose weight. The question again is whether you'll reverse heart disease. We don't know yet. The only study that's out now is Dean Ornish's. So this is Hero based. But this is also the other label to get, the non-GMO project. Thus far, if it's on the non-GMO project, if it's been stamped, thus far you cannot have genetically modified organisms if you carry the stamp. So I guess the question is, who checks the produce to see if it is truly genetically modified or not? And I'll have to leave it up to the USDA. But and that's where the first stamp comes from, is the USD. Second stamp, because I believe the conspiracy is that the big industries that have genetically modified food and animals, they did not allow the USDA to progress on to put a stamp of any sort. So the project was independently funded. So good place, just like EWG.org as far as pesticides. It's not funded by the government, but it is reliable. So another source, and the picture looks great. I have to taste this. Hopefully it tastes like a Hero. There's also Tofurky's, my favorite company, because they have all these products. This first came out with regards to Tofurky a long time ago. This stuff is awesome. Tofurky's Italian sausage, really good. And the spices in here, really good. If you put it in an oven, or I sometimes have this with rice, or you have it just by itself. So the amount of protein here is 30 grams of protein per 3.5 ounces. And so 3.5 ounces is one of these things. 30 grams of protein. Now, yes, some of you doubting Thomases will say it's processed, and it is processed. If you can cook on your own, then go for just going veggie. But if you can't cook on your own, and you're learning like me, this might be a first step. So don't just think I want you to get all this stuff, because this is processed too. And however, I think in the end, processed this versus processed red meat or processed animal product, I'd rather try this. I think hopefully this will get me where I have to be, is just to sustain the change now as I learn my cooking skills and develop my cooking skills. I've had many different books being given to me by vegetarians, so I'm reading through them. I'm rifling through and learning. Tofurky is a great company. I like this stuff. Is good. This is like a curry. It looks like chicken, but it's a curry substitute. Again, I know it's processed, but it's still non-meat. So this tastes great. I put it in my salad. I sometimes will eat this in soup. This one is more like cold cuts. So it's a substitute. But it does have the texture of chicken, and I'm hoping that Hero has the texture of the lamb. But there's something, I mean, even if you have switch over from animal product to plant product, and those are nice transitions to at least accept for a short time, if the doubting Thomases will say, why don't you stick to it? You know you want it because you miss it. Of course, we all miss it because we grew up with that. I grew up with that. I'm 56, 57 now, and I grew up with that stuff. That doesn't mean, I also grew up with bullying. I don't want to continue with bullying. I also grew up with picking my nose. There's things that have to change to a certain extent. And I think I can still have that fun reminder when I have the texture of what I used to eat a long time ago. And I don't necessarily need that, but I think we all need a little bit of a boost to keep us satiated and happy while we make those changes, and until the changes are accepted by the body as being positive. change is tough, and if you just cut back on your calories, which is another way to lose weight, if you just cut down your caloric intake, that might work. You have to see, and if it does work and you can sustain it, great. Fasting, I don't think anybody could fast continuously. I know people do it, but I don't think it's meant to do that. I think intermittent, I'm going to talk about fasting mimicking diet soon. So it's this cycling of fasting to shoot a message to our cells. Well, I'll get more into it later, but it'll help the cell change so it gets rid of the junky cells, rebuilds new cells. Well, why not just do that with the right foods? Because I do think the IARC is a group that looks at and evaluates all of the data out there to look for cancer-causing things like tobacco, asbestos, radon, and they put on their website, I'll see if I can find a link, processed meats. So processed meat is considered, and I'm probably talking about lunch meat and bacon, but it's considered a carcinogen. I think it's class 1, if I'm not mistaken, along the same lines as tobacco and asbestos. So you really have to, you can't ignore the information. The data is there. If you want to cherry pick the data just to support a bad eating habit, I think there's no argument. I'm not going to argue with anybody. But if I have experience and I have a boatload of patients who have been able to do this, and the majority of my patients can continue, and they find their way. If they can't, then I get them coaches, and we try to make a personal plan. Nobody's the same, but this might, again, be a stepping stone. So those of you who exercise and you're worried you might not get the 1-to-1 ratio of the protein that you're looking for, well, first off, if you're already cooking, then you should be able to switch over easy, or at least add some non-animal dishes, and hopefully, or more fiber. I think fiber is always important. Acacia is an important fiber. It helps pull cholesterol out in the poop. So is psyllium husk. I've done videos on that before, so you can't forget that. But don't worry about the protein part. I mean, if you look at the blue zones, the work of Dan Buettner, one of the highest sources of protein around the world with those areas where people live to 100, beans. There's so many different forms of beans that you shouldn't go wrong, and there's different ways to prepare. Again, for ease, I just got this to show you. This is not necessarily the type of bean that you should be having because of the sugar content in this. This is flavored and it's got syrup in it. The sugar content in this is got to be high. 14 grams of sugar, 6 grams of protein. There's probably a ton of salt in this. So the more processed something is, the more stepped on it is, the more chemicals that are in it. So just be careful. I just use this as a model. But beans are great if you're looking for more protein, and tofu's got a lot of protein too. You just have to find ways. You don't want to just be having tofu like every day, 3 times a day. You want to vary it up. But again, this is a stepping stone. So I've included also what I picked up at Whole Foods today. Oh, that's Brussels sprouts. Really good stuff if you guys like eating. This is nice as an accent, but I wanted to show you this. This is falafel. So falafel also, even though it's cooked already and processed, this is pretty good as far as its protein content. There's many different ways to get protein, and I think I've done videos in the past on how to get protein. And if you can't do this, and you're exercising and you need more and more protein, you're trying to get 1.2 grams per kilo of body weight, trying to maximize, like what the Canadian exercise physiologist said, then just substitute with powder. I mean, most of you guys that are exercising anyway, and you're probably substituting with whey powder anyway to make up, and whey is cheap. Whey comes from cows. It's got probably the most dense and cheapest form of protein supplement. Just get it anywhere. You put it in your drink. I use almond milk, and you put down at least 20 to 30 grams quick. You don't even have to eat, but I would also suggest trying to do whole food approach. I have used protein powder in the form of pea protein, brown rice protein, hemp protein. Hemp's got a really nice amino acid ratio if you're just looking for hemp. There's also soy. And again, if you stick to soy, you should be careful. Even if you have a history of breast cancer in the family, if you don't have any breast cancer, you can go with soy, but it has to be organic. And you have a lot, if you're afraid or it doesn't resonate with you, listen to what your body says, and you have a whole bunch of other options. I know this is all from my tofu talk, and tofu comes from soy, and if you do have a big problem with breast cancer already, you probably should find another way. But there are other ways, and I'll do them in the future. But hopefully if this works and you can sustain it and you can be really good with reading and trying different recipes, trying different preps, slow cookers, smokeless grills, a grill outside, oven, microwave, whatever. I think Indian food is really easy, and it's so plentiful nowadays that you might want to taste and see what a lot of my Indian patients are vegetarian, vegan. You might want to see how they prepare their foods. Really great with their spice and their turmeric too. So this is how I would suggest we start off. And then when you get to be really well-versed, then maybe consider repeating the blood tests just to see if there's a difference between the first blood test that we got before your change and 3 months or 4 months later. I think 3 months is about the amount of time I would do on a diet of some sort to see it manifest. But the thing with cholesterol is if you don't reduce your stress, it might take up to I've taken up to 6 to 9 months to see a change in my patients. I just wait. I get nervous, especially my ones that are 60, late 60s, wait a little more, and then the thing drops. It's really nice to see when it drops, because at that point in time I say, we got it, just continue, you're safe. And then I probably would just repeat to make sure it wasn't a fluke, and hopefully make those visits every year and not even worry about a heart attack coming. We still have to worry about cancer and stroke and Alzheimer's or other things, but at least we kind of pushed one of those 3 diseases back 3 decades. And remember, you might say, I don't care if I die, but with all the life-saving maneuvers now and emergency rooms and EMS responses being on average within 15 minutes, at least where I live, you will not die. You will be stented or given a procedure, kept alive, in agony and pain with a whole bunch of medicines, and if you're lucky you'll die after that. But honestly, if you can do it now, do it. Change and be a model for everybody else younger than you in your family, and hopefully they don't have the same diseases, because the stuff we ate in the 60s and 70s is totally different than the stuff we eat now. This is unheard of when I was growing up. But now you can walk into many different stores. Target, of all places, had some of this stuff. I wanted to show pot stickers made of tofu, which tasted great, but they ran out. And one of these days, I will make this stuff, I promise you, on my own. But until then, I think it's the way I'm going to take it. So, great question, Kristi. Hopefully this gives you a little bit of a framework for the rest of you. If you found this helps, give me a thumbs up or share it with other people. And then put down how you try to lower your cholesterol, or what you do for your meatless days of the week in trying to lower your risk factors.